Hello everyone and welcome back to Daska Discusses. On this episode I'm going to talk about the top 10 Australian films to watch, well, on Australia Day or Australia Day weekend. Let's do this. Number 10. Starting off the list, if you're looking for a good comedy slash thriller slash crime kind of film, you can't go past Two Hands. Heath Ledger, Rose Byrne and Brian Brown star in this fantastic film about, well, you could say a bunch of gangsters who give someone some money to deliver, he loses said money, then you got some other kids with a subplot coming in, a bit of a romance, and then all these stories coming together right at the end for a fantastic finale. Two Hands, definitely a bit of a, if you haven't seen it and you're Australian, well look, I wouldn't say it wasn't the most popular film out there. I mean, a lot of people I speak to are like, oh, I've never heard of it. I'm amazed because Heath Ledger's performance is fantastic, but Two Hands, number 10 on my list. Number 9, usually reserved for Anzac Day, I would say, but number 9 on my list is Gallipoli, starring Mel Gibson, Mark Lee, and directed by Peter Weir. Follows the story of two Australian sprinters who end up going to Gallipoli to fight in World War I. Again, being a war film, you see the horrors of war, what happened with the Australian soldiers, New Zealand soldiers, the Anzacs you could say, and you know, the trench warfare that happened. It's quite a moving film and quite an opening sequence, quite a closing sequence as well. I mean, one of the most memorable closing sequences that I can remember from a war film. So, Gallipoli, number 9 on my list as a great and quite moving war film about World War I and the Anzacs. Number 8. The tagline for this film read, "You've never seen anything like it." Well, I'll tell you what, if you haven't seen Romper Stomper and you do manage to see it, yeah, that's pretty much what you're going to think. Now, I saw this back when I was probably a teenager, came out in the early 90s as well, starring Russell Crowe and Daniel Pollock. I tell you what, it is a visceral, gritty film about, or you could say, a bunch of skinheads living in Melbourne's western suburb. You could say the opening sequence is one of my favourites, with the camera panning down and you see the words Footscray Station, I think it's 1:30 AM or something like that. The whole film based around these group of skinheads living in Melbourne at that time and what they get up to during their daily lives, etc. is very confronting and obviously not for everyone, this type of film, but I think it is a brilliant film, Romper Stomper. And furthermore, if you look at films like American History X, they are very similar, and which one is better? Well, they both deal with two different things in two different countries, but Romper Stomper, definitely an important film for Australian cinema. Number 8 for me. Number 7. Number 7, Strictly Ballroom by Baz Luhrmann, about a rogue maverick dancer that makes up his own steps and gets shunned by his dancing community. Tell you what, didn't think as a kid watching this I'd enjoy it. You know, who wants to watch ballroom dancing when you're 10, 11 years old? But it is quite a powerful film, some great dancing sequences obviously, and a great closing sequence as well. Paul McCurry does a good job as well. And Baz Luhrmann, in terms of, is it his greatest film that he's made? No, I don't think so, but as an Aussie film, it's definitely iconic. Some great scenes in there. Bill Hunter's in it as well, with a nice cameo as well. Strictly Ballroom is light, entertaining, and a good story that follows on with a great closing sequence that you won't forget. Number 6, coming out in 1994, starring Toni Collette, is Murals Wedding. Another musical type of theme, I guess, to this top 10. Toni Collette plays Muriel, and she's basically, you could say she's an outcast, or the ugly duckling, as the synopsis says on the back of the DVD as well. And she goes through her life and goes on a holiday, gets loaned some money, tries to find herself, comes back, makes some new friends, is obsessed with ABBA, wants to get married. It's all about her wedding, and it's all about, I guess you can say, relationships as well. Bill Hunter does star in this as well, with some funny lines in there as well as Muriel's father. But I'll tell you what, it is an iconic Aussie film that is well known all around the world. Murals Wedding, definitely on my list. Number 5, very hard to go past a horror, an Australian horror that's iconic, I think, and it's quite creepy, eerie, disturbing at the same time. Yes, I'm talking about Wolf Creek. Now, you can't beat Mick Taylor, who is played by John Jarratt. He's an iconic horror character, and this movie is not for everyone, not for the squeamish, and it is quite disturbing because I think, different to all the gore films like Halloween and Friday the 13th and Saws and all that, this one here is basically a real, well, you know, loosely based on real life cases, but John Jarratt brings his performance. It's quite creepy how he brings out Mick Taylor, Now they did make a sequel and they do have a TV show as well, but I just think the original, there's something visceral, something dark, disturbing, harrowing. The cinematography is fantastic. The acting is fantastic again, like I just said, but also everything in that film, knowing that you're isolated completely in the Australian outback. Now I've been camping a few times, I've driven through various parts of Australia, and at times you look around and you say to your friends, wow, I feel like I'm in Wolf Creek. So that's number 5 for me. Number 4. Following on from the, I guess you could say, the Australian outback from Wolf Creek, this one's a bit different. Made in 1979, yes, I'm talking about George Miller's Mad Max, starring Mel Gibson. If you're into cars, this is your type of film. I think it's a VB Interceptor or a Ford something. If I'm wrong, just post it in the comments. But I tell you what, love the car, love the film. It's about, obviously, Max, played by Mel Gibson, who has to get, well, basically wants to stop a bunch of bikies. I don't want to give away too much, but also iconic rival, iconic antagonist in the Toe Cutter. Mad Max, number 4 on my list. Number 3, coming out in the year 2000, I remember this vividly because it was one of the films that I snuck into when I was under 18, and tell you what, I was quite impressed. Yes, I'm talking about Chopper, based upon the life of Mark Brandon Chopper Reed in Melbourne, Australia, about a notorious, infamous criminal that basically went around and cleaned up the streets, so to say. You could see, as he said in his book as well. Now, in terms of Chopper, I think anyone who's seen it knows that it is quite harrowing, visceral, quite violent in some places as well, but just to see Eric Bana's performance as Chopper Reed is fantastic as well in terms of what he brings to the role, and I think the overall style of the film, the way it's shot, is fantastic as well. Like, you've got the prison scenes which look quite cold, and when he gets out of prison, the one-liners in this film are many, and I guess you could say, if you've seen this film and you're Australian and you live in Australia, specifically Melbourne, you could see people throwing out these quotes a lot. So up with Chopper at number 3 on my list. Number 2. That's not a knife, that's a knife. Yeah, I am talking about Crocodile Dundee. Could you get any more iconic Australian character than Mick Dundee, played by Paul Hogan? Crocodile Dundee, yes, if you watch it now these days, you may think there is tad, I guess you could say, some parts that you may think are like borderline racist maybe, or offensive these days, but you gotta remember, guys, that the 80s, it was a lot different. Take it for what it's worth. It's a fantastic Aussie film if you haven't seen it, but if you have, again, full of one-liners, definitely something to watch on Australia Day weekend. Crocodile Dundee, number 2. Number 1, in case you haven't guessed it already, yep, if you have, you're right, The Castle, directed by Rob Sitch, starring Michael Keaton and Stephen Curry as well. A fantastic film about a man who wants to save his house from, I guess you can say, developers, the airport that he lives next door to as well, and the battle that ensues with that. Now, there is some fantastic one-liners in this, there is some fantastic scenes in it. Everything I think in this film is iconic. Yeah, I might have said that about a lot of Aussie films, but they are. Australian films have got their own feel to them, and they are iconic, and this one is definitely heartfelt, and it's definitely a film where you can watch over and over and still laugh at all the jokes, because the storyline is all about the little guy taking on the big guys, and the performances from the whole family are fantastic, and it really gels the film together, and you can tell that basically the writing, the dialogue, everything works well in this film. It's my number 1 pick for the Australia Day weekend for top 10 films to watch on Australia Day weekend. And also, if you've enjoyed this video and you've enjoyed my other videos, don't forget to like and subscribe and leave any comments you wish to make. That would be fantastic. Thanks for your support. Until the next time on Daska Discusses, I'll see you then. Boom!